Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Something a wee bit different today. We're heading out on a boat trip out to the Isles of Staffa and Iona. Hopefully, as you can probably tell from the shot there, it's looking very stormy. So we're not completely sure that the boat trip's going to go ahead. But if it does, we'll take you with us, see if we can grab some shots. Aye, so we've arrived in Oban, but as you can tell, it's absolutely thrown it down. So we're not 100% sure that the boat trip's going to go ahead. So unfortunately, the place that's running the tour doesn't open for another half hour. So we won't know for half an hour whether we're going on the trip or not. So of course, the problem we try to do photography on an organised trip is the amount of time you have in each location is obviously governed by how long the trip stays there. So I think we've got about an hour on Staffa, assuming we get to Staffa, and we've got about 2 hours on Iona. So I'm going to try and grab some shots there. The other problem with being an organised tour is obviously you don't get to choose the time of day that you're there, and you also have to contend with there being a lot of people there. So it's going to be a challenge. Right, it looks like we're on. We've just picked up the tickets from the tour office, and now we're heading our way down to the Kalmac ferry port. We need to pick up separate tickets there for the Kalmac ferry. And then we're off to Mull, and then on to Staffa, and then down to Iona and back to Mull and back home for later. So we're told it's to clear up later, so we might get some shots later on. But either way, we're just going to enjoy the trip. So we've made it to Mull, on a bus now to go get the boat to Staffa. So the bus trip from Craignure out to Fionafort takes just over an hour, about an hour and 15 minutes. So we just sat back and enjoyed the beautiful scenery of the Ross of Mull. As soon as we arrived at Fionafort, it became fairly obvious that there was quite a wind building up and it was going to be an interesting sail over to Staffa. So we queued up anyway, waiting until the Kalmac ferry left for Iona before our own little cruise boat came over, and we boarded ready for the trip out. It didn't take us long until we cleared the shelter of Iona and hit the open water before the waves started to really start to build. But this was nothing compared to what we were going to have later. As we cleared Iona, the crossing got choppier and choppier, and it wasn't long before people were starting to slip from seats and fall on the floor. Everyone on the outside of the boat was soaked to the skin with the sea spray, and it was interesting.
Extends back into Isle by 240 feet. That's about 20 metres high, 80 metres deep. Further to the left is a smaller cave called the Boat Cave. That's only accessible by a small boat on a good day. I don't think I'd fancy going in there today in my dinghy. That would be a one-way ticket, I think. And just to the left of that is what's referred to as the Great Face. Now, at the Great Face, you can see clearly the three different formations of the basalt rock. The island having been formed by volcanic eruption. The smooth rock at the bottom is the volcanic ash, and then you have the pillars there in the middle. The pillars have been formed with a very slow solidification of the lava. As it cooled, it crystallised and cracked into these hexagonal shapes. And when you're walking on Staffa, you will see they are predominantly six-sided.
Once we'd landed on Staffa, the first task was to make our way around to the entrance of Fingal's Cave. Now, I was actually on the island about 4 years ago, and I had this great idea that the best thing to do would be to set up a long exposure in the cave. That would allow for obviously quite a lower ISO, but it would also ideally smooth out the waves and remove the people. Unfortunately, that isn't quite what happens when you do that in Fingal's Cave, because like myself, most people when they enter the cave for the first time actually just stop dead in their tracks and stare, and so they don't move, and so they are not blurred. I'll show you an example of a shot that I got on that previous trip using that very technique. So in this visit I decided to go the other way and shoot handheld and try and grab some shots of the actual motion of the sea, you know, freeze some waves, catch some splashes, all that sort of stuff, and really just pick out some of the details in the water.
As long as they Tesco wine deliveries. It's one of those places that the boss is amazing. Well, we know that I didn't want to come back, I just thought.
After Fingal's Cave, we decided to make our way back round to the landing jetty and then up some metal stairs onto the top of the island. Normally if you visit in the summertime or springtime you can see puffins up here, but this time of the year it was mainly cormorants and other seabirds that were nesting. So we did manage to catch a glimpse of a couple of seals that were watching the seabirds from the water. But other than that, there was not an awful lot of wildlife around in an early, windy, blustery October morning. So after an hour on Staffa, it was time to make our way back to the boat for what we hoped would be a nice leisurely cruise over to Iona. But as you can probably tell from the video, the wind was picking up and the waters out there were starting to look decidedly choppier than they were when we arrived. And sure enough, after we slipped berth and left the relative calm of the waters around Staffa and entered into the open water between Staffa and Iona, it became very clear that this was not going to be a nice, gentle sailing over to Iona. I had to stop filming almost immediately as we were being rocked by 10-12 foot waves, and that coupled with the sea spray which was soaking everybody in the back of the boat made it very, very slippy, and more than once myself and several other passengers slipped from our seats onto the floor, which was quite funny. Unfortunately for others, there were a couple of cases of seasickness, literally, where people, how should we say, lost their well-prepared lunches into some strategically placed bags. But we lived to tell the tale, and not a moment too soon we docked in Iona and we all made our way off for a little time on the island. So we survived the sailing back from Staffa. Just it was wild. How wild was that? We're in probably 10 to 12 foot waves coming back. The boat was rolling. Interesting stuff. Right, so we're on Iona. We've been to the Harbour and stuff like that before, so we're not going to go there. Instead, we're going to head up the coast a little bit to see if we can find a nice little bay or a beach to sit on for a while and see if we can grab some photographs there. Just passing the old nunnery at the moment. Okay, I hadn't realised at this point that the windshield I had on my microphone had been lost somewhere between Staffa and Iona. Presumably there's a seal out there wearing it as a hat or something. But the downside is that it means that the audio on Iona is a bit iffy, so I'll do this last little part of the video on voiceover if you don't mind. Basically, we had visited Iona a few years ago and went to the north end of the island and also visited the abbey and the nunnery. So today we decided to work our way south down along the coast and try and grab some shots of the little coves and the bays that you get along there, looking over the water towards Mull, because the colours in the water down there when the sun hits is just stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. So we made that the task for the day. So that's it for Iona. Just waiting for the ferry to take us back over to Mull, and then it's the long bus journey back to Craignere with the last ferry of the day back to Oban, and then we've got a 2.5 hour drive back to Glasgow. Pretty good day.